Good evening. Right then, as promised, this is going to be an eye project. And it's done in colour pencil, and the choice of my choice of colour pencil for this project is the polychromos. So it's a nice, it's a white cat. Obviously nothing looks really white, so it's got greys in it. It's got lots of greys in it, and some greens there, and even a little bit of blue in the highlight. Now you will get a copy. You'll get a colour copy of the cat's eye that you can print out. I will also put up a black and white copy and also a list of the materials. So how I've selected the materials is I've actually gone on, I have an app on my phone, and it's called the Colour Picker. You can download it on Google or on Safari. And then what you do is I pull the picture into it. And then if you move this little thing around, so you can always go right into it, you move this around. So first of all, you pick what brand of pencils you're going to use, and it does cover quite a lot of the pencils. It's got Artesia, it's got Lightfast, Polychromos, the Faber-Castell Classic, Prismacolor, Pablo, and the Caran d'Ache Luminance. So it's got whichever you want. So you can use a mixture. I mean, once you start to pick things, I mean, I usually pick them by eye, but I use this also as a guide. So first of all, if you tap that and then you go into your album, and what you do is you choose. So I know that's my drawing, but we'll choose that one. Okay, and then you can expand it or you can leave it small. And then you go in and you just move that circle around, and then it'll tell you down here what sort of colours you've got. Now, you don't have to stick religiously to these colours. It's only a guide, really, in effect. So, like there's three different colours. Now, I don't like to mix three colours. Two's about my maximum. So I look at this target colour here, and that's the colour I have a look at in my polychroma. So what I normally do is I've got some colour swatches. So every kind of pencil that I've got, I have these colour swatches. And what I do is I lay the colour down on the edge there, put the number if there is a number and the name, and then move them along. So that what I can do then is, if you get the colour picture, so let's go to the greens, for instance. So if you look for the lightest green in there and see if you can match it with any of your colours. You've also got the other colours there if you want to have a look and see which is your. So what I would normally do is say pick that one out of the polychromos. I'd look at the Derwent Lightfast and see which was the closest, and then I'd look at the luminance, and then add all three together and see which one is the nearest. So that would be the base coat because that's the lightest colour. And then what you want to do is you want to sort of keep within a range. So sort of, these colours here. So the permanent green olive, that looks quite good. And that's up there as well. And we can also add a bit of grey in there to make it this darker colour, but you'll have that colour underneath. So when you mix that with another colour, like I use dark sepia, then you will get a sort of shadow colour that does correspond with these colours. And if you look up here, it's a little bit yellowy, more yellowy. So you could even add a bit of yellow into there. Now, I've picked out an initial range of colours, but I may add other colours to them and put glazes on top. So if I need to, I could put a glaze of yellow here just to make that stand out a little bit more, but we'll see that as we progress. So I always keep my colours close to hand. And as I say, it's just a guide for the colours, and then you can add more to them. So the colours I've initially picked. So here we go. I've got a nice little chart here. So I have a square, fill it in, and that's cold grey 1. I've got cold grey 2, dark indigo, the Indian red, sky blue, cold grey 3. We've got the permanent green. We've got an olive green there, 167. We've got the earth green, yellowish, and we've got the May green. So we've got 4 greens basically. So we've got from the yellows to more of a bluey green. Dark sepia I always have, and I've got a warm grey too here. As you can see, it's mainly cool greys, but we do have some warm grey there. The other materials is obviously your paper. I've got this on I'm trying this out. I've not used this paper before. This is Saunders and Waterford hot press watercolor paper. My preferred paper of choice, and which I use mostly, is the Fabriano hot press. It's a lovely smooth surface. So we're just going to try this one out this time. And I also like to use the drafting film as well. I like to use that when I'm doing colour paper, and colour pencil. And I even, if I'm doing like something like portraits and I want a really smooth surface, I do use Mount Board as well. I find that's quite nice when you're doing portraits. So the other things that you'll need is probably an eraser, a nice soft brush for dusting the dust off. So I've got like a makeup brush thing there. I've had it for a long time. But any soft brush will do. Erasers, I've got like an electric razor there. I also have a Tombow rubber for small areas, and also it helps sometimes pull out like things like whiskers. And I have a general plastic eraser as well. You can use for the little whiskers or the white hairs here, you can use an embossing tool. That's a small one, so I'll be using that end, but you get the different sizes on each end, so you can send for them. They're a tool, but you could use a cocktail stick. You could use an old darning needle if you're careful with it, the back, a big darning needle. The other thing you could do if you didn't want to pull out the hairs with an embossing piece, something that embosses deep into the paper, what you could do is once you get enough layers on it, you can use a ceramic blade. Now these are brilliant, but they're better than a craft knife, because craft knife can damage your paper, whereas this tends to just pull the layers off. But you do have to have enough layers on to use this. And the other thing is it's safer to use, but yeah, it can cut paper. So as you can see, it can actually cut paper as well. So, and it has a pullback blade. So I use that quite a lot. And then obviously a sharpener. Now I do like to use the Derwent mini sharpener, which is like a crank sharpener. But I also have this little gadget here, which is a battery operated sharpener. And I have actually got an electric one, which is quite expensive, but to be honest, I tend to use these two more. The electric one is very good for polychromos, but it doesn't allow things like the Caran d'Ache luminance in. The barrel is a little bit too thick. Right then, so we've got the colours. We've got our image, and then, as I say, we also have a black and white image. Now you say, well, why do we need a black and white image? So what I do is I download my image onto a tablet so that I can open the tablet, pull the image. Let's have a look at, for instance, it should be on here. So let me open this tablet, find the image. Let's have a look. Can switch it on. Right, so yeah, so as I was saying, why do we have a black and white? The black and white is good for showing you the tonal values. So as you can see here, we've got some very dark colours, and going right up into here, we've got the dark colours. But as they come out here, they are slightly lighter. So you've got to go from the dark or the light to the darker. And then here you can see this is slightly darker shade, but it will give you an idea of the tonal value, because that's obviously darker than that color. So that's why I give you it. And obviously it's fantastic for these sort of things here, for the black and white and the grays that you use for getting a tonal alignment with your picture. Okay, let's have a look here. So I have on here, let's find the picture. Quite a few reference images on here. So there we have, that is the actual picture. Okay, so you can see if I have it on a tablet, if I'm working on this pupil area, I can pull it up and get as much detail as I want off it, which is better than having just the printout. I mean, I use the printout initially. That helps me to do my drawing, get the things in the right place, like the pupil, and also these shapes here, and also the highlight. But, you know, I can see, I can also use this tablet to actually help if I need to go a bit further in and see a little bit more detail if I'm doing a piece that big. Right then, so what I've done is I've drawn, I'm just going to save this because I'm going to use the tablet as my, so what I'm going to do is put that on there. Okay, and then I've got the picture. Let me just plug this in. Right, let me just plug that in. Let me just get the color picture. Let's have a look. Edit. Right, so that was the original that I took the picture from. It's a Pixabay free licensed image. So I'm just going to pull that in, like that. Done. And then I can go into the, so I'll have that at the side of me. Okay, so I've got the big image and I've also got my paper image. Now then, I've drawn the image out, and what I've done is I've made it a little bit smaller because I'm just doing the eye. So I've done it 11.5 centimeters by 15.5. Now then, you can see it very light. I've done the drawing very light, and I've also done it with a grey, one of the greys that I'm using in the picture. So I used the warm grey 3, and I lightly did it because I didn't use graphite. My choice, I've learned over the years, I don't like graphite so much. The simple reason is that it's quite, when you put coloured pencil on it, if you've got too much underneath it and you've got the graphite underneath it, it smudges it and it changes the colour. If you're using light colours, you lose the vibrancy of the colour and it becomes muddied. So I found that by using a coloured pencil, a choice of what's in the picture itself, so obviously one of the lighter ones, and draw the picture very lightly and then go over it with, I use some blue tack, turn it into a thing, and I just roll it like that on the image and it takes off quite a lot, but enough so that I can see the image there. Now then, on this side, you'll see that these are the sort of techniques that we're going to be using inside this project. So like I said, if your choice is to use an embossing tool to create some of these really nice, sharp airs that are coming out here to give it that 3D look. So you want these to be, because we're working light to dark, we need to have some of these really brightly standing out. So what you can do is you can use what we call an indenting tool or an embossing tool. You could use a darning needle or a cocktail stick. You could even use a white pencil with a sharp point, as long as it's hard enough to indent the paper. So this is that sort of bit of technique, if you like. So what I'm doing is I'm using the smallest end of the embossing tool. And what I'm doing is I'm looking at the reference photograph. So it's coming around the eye like this. And you have to put enough pressure on. And then there's a couple that come up like that, come upwards like that. And then the rest go over. So if you run your finger like that, you'll feel it. Oops, sorry, it's gone a bit blurred. We'll get it back in focus. I'm sorry about this. Let's try and come on, get back into focus. The thing with the indenting tool is that you have got to make sure that you put enough pressure on, but without actually damaging the paper. Okay. Oh, come on, what's going off? I hate it when it does this. Come on, focus back. So as you can see, you can't actually see. You may be able to see if I move it down, but there you go. You can just see some little marks there. Okay. So what you do then is we start off with, say, some of the light grey, and then we get some of the shadowy colours in there. So what I'm going to use is, so I'm looking at the cap we've got. So we're going to start with, I'm going to do a bit of shading just backwards and forwards, or in the direction, should I say, of the fur. Okay, so I'm just doing so I'm holding my pencil far back so I don't put too much pressure on. Okay, so I'm coming out where you can start to see slightly the indentations that you've put in the paper. Okay, so I want to come a little bit further out. Okay, still following the direction of form. So then what I'm going to do is I'm going to come back in with a darker grey, which is the shadow area, so that, and then if you go into the lighter area, you'll start to see these white bits show up even more. So what you can do is then you go in between, as you go further in, you get in between some of these whiter areas like that. And then you can obviously go back over and darken some of these areas up as well where it needs darkening. And the darker you go, the more these hairs will stand out. Okay. And then you could put some even darker shading in with some of the areas next to the whites or next to the indented lines, and pull it in to the back into the whiter fur, and you'll get some more definition there. Okay, so there you can see, I'll fetch it up to you. You can see where the indentations are. Okay, so you just build that up a little bit more. And the more indentations you put on there, then the more bits of colour you can get. Okay, so that's one way. The other way I've just done down here. So if you put the darker colour on first, like that, put it on into, plenty of layers. Now you're going to need plenty of layers for this, because the way for the craft knife to the ceramic blade to work. So I'm doing this as fur in the direction of the fur, and then pull it back into these whiter areas like that. Build it up. And then obviously as we come out, I can come a bit lighter. That. Could even put a little bit of warm grey down here. Like that. And then if you want to, you can actually blend all this in with a nice white pencil. So you get a nice smooth surface. And providing you've got enough layers on there, so let's put a little bit more greys in there. And some of the really dark grey that we used. Now these are quite long pieces of fur here. Now a lot of the parts of the face on a cat are short haired, but this is where got some of the whiskers showing. So now if I get the blade, and what I do is I open it up. Now I tend to hold it a bit more like that. So I've got the that bit is so the that bit is down that bit there, and then I use it basically just like a just like you would a pencil. Like I said, the more layers you've got on, the better it would work. Okay. And then I just brush away the excess. And then if you push that up there, you can see how it makes it look a little bit more. And then with the white, I wanted to with an opaque white, and just go back over and add a few more bits of the white fur. And then once again, if I wanted to, just pull some of them off and then go back in. So you're going in and lifting it up, and then you've got that. So that, that looks a little bit more, I don't know, softer. So you could use that in different areas. If you need like with the top layer on the eyelid of the cat, then yes, the embossing tool is probably going to be better. But as you come further down in the cat, then obviously you want it to look a little bit, the transitions of color, you want to look a little bit softer. Okay, so the other sort of techniques that's used in this are like for the iris, I tend to favor, everybody's different. I tend to favor very small circular motion with the pencil, so holding it quite far back so you can't put too much pressure on it. I do the circular, but I do still follow, because if you look, our cat's eyes work as well. If you look at the center of the pupil, everything comes out like that from the center of the pupil. Okay, so what I tend to do is I'm following it from the center of the pupil and I'm fetching it out that way, but I'm using small circular motions because at the end of the day, what I want this to do, it still wants to look smooth. So I use it like that. So I use the lighter color first, and then I start to build up some of the darker colors around the pupil, like that, doing exactly the same. Excuse me. And then if we have some shadow in there, what I would tend to use is the cold grey. If I go around there with the cold grey, you see you've still got the green, but the grey just gives it that little bit of a shadowy feel, which is round the pupil area there. Okay, but it's still going out. So in theory, then that would be your pupil there. So you can go into the pupil when you're doing the just put that in there for now. And again, I wouldn't just use one color on the pupil. I would use a sepia, and then I would probably do something like a indigo to give the black sort of color a bit more of a bit of depth. And then I would also fetch some of it out into this iris like that, into the green and the grey. So that adds a little bit more definition to the shadow there coming from the eye. And then if you want to blend it in, after a couple of layers, you can blend it and then go back over it if you do this lightly, just with a white pencil. Again, following the direction of form. So you've got to imagine the eyes are round. It's not a flat piece, it's round and it's going into the socket. So everything comes out from the center of the pupil. And then do that. And then you can redo it again and just build up your layers slowly. It's a slow process, but you build them up and you can get the colors there. Okay, so this is just showing you the techniques roughly. Right, the next one is obviously fur technique. So the one thing you don't want to do when you're doing fur, I'll show you this with a green pencil, is go like that. Because what you've got is that's the same thickness as that. It's too uniform, everything's in a line. So I tend to find if you hold your pencil further back, you put your pencil down and you carry on in the general direction that the fur's going. But if you look, you do that, put your pencil down, lift in the general direction, keep doing that, moving it up. And what happens is some of the fur crosses, some of it is straight, but it's not in a straight line like that. And then obviously the darker the fur, all you do is you put more strokes closer together like that. And then if you want to come out and it gets lighter, but it's the same color, all you do is do less strokes and further apart. But again, if you hold your pencil like that, you'll see that the first strokes aren't in a straight line like that. They look more natural and like a first stroke should look. So you want a nice sharp pencil for this. But I tend to hold the pencil about halfway back. If you hold it too close there, you seem to go in too heavy-handed and too dark. We need to build this up because you would obviously be using other colors on top. So further down here, if the fur is darker at this point, then what you can do is add a darker color on the top using the same process. And as you can see, you start to build up some depth to the color, to the fur, so it's not just one color. And it does make it look more natural and more like fur should look. Okay. What you need to do is when you're observing your picture is sort of like here, they're a lot shorter strokes, whereas they're a lot thicker and a lot heavier stroke and longer. So round here as well, but round the eye, just here. And also look at the direction because sort of here may not be so clear on the photo, but if you look on your tablet, the fur actually does curl that way as it's coming out. So it's short, but it curls. And there it sort of does a U-turn and comes out like that there. Then round here, you've got it coming out and then it comes down. So you've got some shorter fur that comes, but it sort of shapes like that. So observation is the key. So start with your light layers, build it up, and then you can put the darker layers on top. Okay, so that's the techniques I've shown you that we're going to be using. So now we're going to go on to the project. Okay, now then I've just lent on that a bit. So I've got there's a bit of graphite on the back of that. So just clear that off. Okie dokie. Right, let's get started. Another thing I have is a spare bit of paper, or I use this Clairefontaine that you can get that goes in between sheets of paper, sort of, pastel paper. So I use that to lean on because then I don't transfer any of the oils from my hand. The other thing that I use, which you probably won't be using, but I suffer with arthritis quite a lot. So I do have these gloves that will help. So my hands don't get as tired as quick. Okay. Right then. To start with, I use the sepia. So I'll make sure what I tend to do is make sure all my pencils are nice and sharp to start with. I will still be sharpening as I go along. but hopefully they should be quite sharp. Now, if they get too short, I use a pencil extender, which just makes them basically into a normal pencil. Okay, so what I'm going to do with this eye is I'm looking at the pupil to start with, and I am just going to lightly and carefully draw in the pupil shape. Now, there is where the highlight is it, so I'm just going to leave that little bit there. Come down here. Okay. And now then in here, we've got the first part of the highlight. So then we have a bit that comes out there like that. So then I do very small circular motions, very light pressure. I go around the pupil like that. Okay. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go around it a couple of times just to get the shape right. So keep looking at your photo. Make sure you get this shape right. Okay. Leave the highlight as the white of the paper for now. Okay. I've gone over that just a couple of times like that. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just actually going to put a little bit of the indigo blue over the top like that. Okay, so what that will do will help to darken it even more. If you did this with a straight black pencil, it would look a little bit flat and deflated. It wouldn't really give it much shape. Okay, so I can see that's darkened it up a bit. Now, the other color you could use, which I use quite often, is a walnut brown, which is the 177. I often use that as well on top. So along with the indigo blue, if you put that on, again, lightly. There we go. There we go. So you can see that it's darkened that quite nicely. Just give it a quick brush with your soft brush just to give it that bit of colour. Right then, so what I want to do now is get some of this really light green. So I've put the pupil in, but before that, I want to get the shape of the iris and make sure I get it correct to this. So it is quite circular, and then it goes up into this lid. So that is like an eyelid. So that is going to be the darkest part because it goes in. It's like anything, it's got a shadow protruding out. So with the sepia again, let's just get the shape of this of the outer lid, basically. So let me just, so it's coming down here. Don't go quite to a point there. It goes back around and back out here. Okay, now I'm just going to leave it in there for a bit. Comes down to about here. Now it gets light at the bottom. There's no real dark color there. So I'm going to leave the bottom bit. But then as we come around this bit, it goes back in there. Like that. And then this is the tear duct part. So if we pull that out there, let me turn my picture around so you can see what I'm doing. I don't like it if you can't see. And then up here. So you're basically redrawing and re-establishing the lines And then if you look here, we've got another dark bit that comes up there. And then there's this little corner bit here. Okay, so that's the start of the eye. So we've got some of that in. What I'm going to do with the bottom bit, I'm going to use the cold grey 2, and I'm just going to put in a slight softer line just there, just so that we know we've got the bottom of the eye shaped right there. And then what I'm going to do is we've got this top area, which is the it's going to come down, and that is the lid. I'm just going to put that in there. Okay. And then that sort of comes out to where this bit comes out at the side of the eye there. Probably comes a little bit more up there. Okay. Okay, so that's the base of the eye. Now then, if you're going to be doing the embossing bit, then I suggest you get your embossing tool. Okay, so I've got a nice thin one here. Can't exactly see what size it is, but it is extremely small. You can see it's got a little ball on the end. But this one is very tiny, just there. Yeah, it's extremely tiny. Okay, so again, I'm going to have my picture just here. I'm looking at the top. If I try and put it here. So you can see I'm looking at these top bits here, these bits that are going to, so they need to come really forward and we need to push these back. So the rule of thumb is if you use cool colors, it pushes something back. Warm colors fetch things forward. Okay. So before we start, I'm just going to put in some lines. So I'm going to have a look. So they've got a couple that come out over this dark area. So we need to make sure we put them in. So again, I'm putting them in and pressing down quite hard. And then we've got another couple of loose ones there. So these will show once we start to put the black in. And then one of them comes back up here. Another one there. There, we've got one there. And then we just seem to have a lot of very fine hairs coming out in basically one direction this way. But again, like doing fur, so we want quite a few of these actually here. So I'm actually pushing some in and taking some out just so that we've got, and I'm not going to go too far up because these soften off a little bit. If you look, they're not quite as harsh as these here. These need to be really prominent, whereas these we can do by using the colour. Okay. Okay. So I think I've got enough there. Once you think you've got enough, that's fine. If you don't have enough at the end of the day, once we've got the colour laid down and we've built the layers up, then you can always use the blade and take some out with that. Okay. Right then. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to start and I'm going to put a little bit of the green in. So we're going to look for this really light green first. So for that one, I've picked, we have a look, the May green, which is 170. So if you look, there's two greens there that are, so we've got that one, which is more of a yellow green. That's more of a green. So there's a slight difference. Okay. So what I'm going to do initially, I'm going to go around, but I'm going to leave this highlight. So the highlight that you've drawn, if you go around the highlight and the pupil, you can go into the pupil. That doesn't matter because then you get a smoother finish coming out. Again, hold it far back and do a very light. So where you see the actual highlight, with some green coming through it there. And then that's your highlight there. There's a little bit of light there. Okay, so, right. So I'm thinking, right, now they're protruding out. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start and do my circular motions. Just put this line back in a bit before I lose it. What I've done is I've marked in some of these lines where the dark and where the light goes. So if you think about it, it's like you're going to be going all the way around this eye like that, avoiding the highlight. Like that. And going back in towards the center of the pupil. The small circular motions. So that one goes straight up there and then we come out that way. And then this side, we go up. Now don't worry too much about this top area because we are going to be putting some, that's going to be going really dark. Okay. What we're trying to do at the moment is put this light area in. Again, I'm just going to mark this with a bit of a line there because that's where we've got some darker areas. So I still want to see where they are. And go round like that, back to the edge. Like I said, turn your paper around to suit what's best for you. So just going over there, that area is going to be a lot darker over that line, but okay. So there we go. We've got the base layer in. Okay, and we've left this area white. Some color there. That's the green as well. Okay. Okay. So this is the white that we've left for the highlight. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to use the same pencil, but what I'm looking at now is I'm looking at the shapes of these darker areas here. But on this side you can see it. So I'm looking at these shapes here. So that lighter area goes through there, and through there. And you can see it's really light there. So what I'm going to do is everywhere apart from just right underneath that highlight again, where the darker areas are, I'm actually just going to continue holding the pencil far back, watching the reference photograph. So I keep looking at it every couple of minutes or couple of seconds. Draw what you see, not what you think you see. So we have some dark color that comes out from the pupil. So if you look at it as a shape, so it's sort of a square, it comes out to about there. So it's sort of straight across there. Comes back into the center of that pupil. Right underneath the highlight is very light. So I'm just going to leave that. Then we've got this darker bit coming up this side of the pupil. And then again, that gets darker as we go up, but we'll put that in for now. So you can see we have this shape and it comes down here a little bit. And then we have got this shape here at the bottom. So if you look at roughly where that comes to, that comes up there. Okay, so small circular motions, and we're just plotting in the shapes at the moment. And then it comes up here, and then we've got some darker green coming up here, and then it goes even darker there. So let us pencil that in a bit. So we've got these like little veins here. So if we use the point of the pencil and put them in so we know where they're going. And then just on the inside of them, we put the colour. Okay, circular motions like that. There's a little area here where it gets a bit darker. And then right up at the top, it's a lot darker. Okay. And right next to there, it's dark. It's quite dark. So you can see now we've got some shapes in. And this is its ugly stage, basically. It does look quite ugly at this point. But never mind. So I'm just going to rub that little mark out there because I don't want that showing because it's a light third cat. So obviously we don't want anything coming over on that side. Right then. So what I want to do now is so we can make that highlight sort of pop a little bit more is when we do a highlight or when I do highlights mainly, I use a blue inside. They're never white, really. They've got a blue tinge to them. So if we look at this one, there's a bit of blue coming down there. So that sort of shape, just again, small circular motions, but hardly visible, but just around that side of the shape there. So it goes around the edges of the colour and even that green colour there that's coming out of it. It's got a bit of blue to it. So if we put a light mark there of the blue and same at this end, and then here it sort of comes up. So we've got some blue there. So at this end, we've got a little bit of the blue. Like that. And it's even looks a bit purple if you zoom in on it. So let's have a look. If we zoom it right in, that bit there, let me show you. So if we look in there, that bit there, you can't see this because it's a screen on the screen, but that's quite purpley. And same down here. So we've put the blue. So what I've got here is an Indian red. And again, I'm just going to lightly go over where I've put the blue. And that will, and then back over with the blue. That will give us a nice, gentle purple. Okay. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a white. Now, the white for me, for preferred for blending, is the Caran d'Ache white, which is 001. It's a little bit more opaque than the polychromos white. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going over and blending all them colours in and putting the rest of the white there where the highlight is. Okay. So that blends all them colours in. And you're thinking, well, don't look at, and then I'm just going to go over where it's a bit lighter, where it fades off on the outside. So you might not think that stands out that much now, but once we build the colours up, that is going to make that look even lighter. So when you put something sort of like a highlight in and you put some colour in it initially, as long as you're using very light layers, once you start layering up with the darker colours, which go next to the highlight, they're a lot darker, then they actually make the highlight pop and it does look white, but it's got other colours in it, which gives it depth. And that's what we're looking for. Right then, so I want to continue now building up some of these greens, but just before we do that, I want to look at this side of the eye here. So if you look where that is there, we're going to do, again, I'm using the sepia, using small circular motions with a light pressure. And I'm going around the edge like that. And so that on the inside, it doesn't look that even. So we've got the crisper edge on the outside here. And then on the inside, it doesn't look. And so here, if you look, it sort of comes out a little bit more because it's starting to get dark just here. So as we go around, we can fetch that in, so it's going back into that where that pupil is. So if you take that line and do that and that and that, then it goes into that pupil area. And then down here, just a little bit. Again, like that. And then we've got that area here as well, which is dark. So we can put in that little area there, which then goes up into that area. Okay. Okay, so looking at this all the time, you can see the shapes that we're trying to achieve. So now I'm coming around here and I've got a little bit of, so these are the darkest areas at the minute. We're doing just the darkest, but we're not doing them with hard pressure. We're still using light pressure. Okay. Then that goes up into there. That, then that'll be dark. Now, as you can see, as we start to come over these indentations that we've put in there, you can see they are starting to stick out now. And that's what we're after. Okay. Okay. So we're using light pressure here because what we're doing, we're going to build up. So we've got to go from the green to the black, but make it look smooth. The transition looks smooth. So we don't want any hard lines as such. So we use a light pressure initially to get the area down. Quite a bit of dark in there. And then it starts to come dark up here. But if you look, this area isn't as dark as right at the very top. So what we're going to do is we're going to build it up slowly. Okay, so it comes more or less to the tip of the pupil there. And then we come down. Now that's quite a purpley look as well. Okay, so we've mapped in. So again, it's still looking ugly, but we've got an area mapped in. So we've got basically where we're going with the shapes. So if you put your greens out, I'm also going to be using some of the walnut brown and the dark indigo and the red, the Indian red to start with. So this looks quite purple. So we could use the blue and the red. So let's have a look how that looks first. So I'm only going to do light pressure. So I'm going to put the blue down first. Okay, there. And then it comes up here into the darker side there. And then it comes round and then it comes over here. So where I've just been with the black, with the sepia, I'm going to put now a lighter section of the blue. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go very lightly over with this, over the top with the red. Okay, into that dark black area as well. Okay, so I need to, that looks a bit red. I'm just going to add some more of the blue. Okay. And then if I get the white, and just gently blend that into the green area like that. So it does blend a little bit. And then if you look, the color changes slightly as you're doing that. It softens it, but it's actually making it a little bit more purple. So I will do 2 or 3 layers before you put the white on. And don't put a lot of pressure on the white when you're blending. Okay. Okay. So I can see a little bit of a purpley color going on there. And then as we're coming further back, I want to add a bit of this walnut brown. So I'm coming out of the black area into that purple. Again, very light pressure, but with the walnut brown. So the walnut brown is now merging with the purpley area, which was the indigo and the Indian red. Then as we come up here, it does get more brown. We don't have as much of the purple. It's more of a darky brown. It's got some blue in it, I think, but it's, and as that comes down here, that's got a bit more of a brown. So again, just carry on just lightly like that. Okay. And if you keep turning your pencil when you're doing it, so you'll probably see me lifting it up and doing that. What I'm doing is I'm turning the point round so that it stays pointed for a lot longer. Okay. That looks like it's a bit of a browny colour there as well. You know, it's got some, you know, it's black, it's got some brown to it. Okay. So I'm going to put a little bit of the red in that brown there, so just to make it pop a bit more. There we go. And then where I put the sepia, I'm just going to put a bit more of this blue. And in that little triangular bit there. And then back round here, right on the edge, adding some of this indigo to the black, or the sepia, should we say. Okay. Light pressure again, and try and blend it as you're going along. So you can see these colours are blending nicely together, but it's giving that shape because we're coming out and getting darker as we come further out. Then it is making the eye look more cylindrical, you know, as though it's a cylindrical object. Okay. And then join all this up with this sepia again. And this time, as we get nearer this edge, we can layer it a bit more at this edge here. And then blend it into that browny colour there. Okay. And then this is the black area here, so we can darken this up a little bit. And that makes those, now you can see how those are now really prominent, these indentations that we did. And then we can follow that down here. We'll continue making it darker as we go along. And then if you look, this sort of fades out a little bit. So that needs to be going. So if you hold your pencil further back and just literally pull it so it goes that way. So you can see the eyes moving that way. Right, so we've got this bit here. Again, that's a purpley colour. So we put the indigo in first. Like that. And then with this red in. What I would suggest is we go back with the indigo and just down here at the bottom, it's a little bit darker just here. And all these little tendencies to put the darker colour somewhere, it does work, and it's there for a purpose, and it does add more definition to the shape. I'm just going to rub that out soon as I've gone over the edge again. Okay, give it a brush. Right, I'm going to go back to some greens, but this time I'm going to change slightly. So if you look at the greens that you've got in the eye, now I can see from the tablet the colours are a bit brighter. So we've got this sort of permanent green, which is sort of what these lines, if you look at these lines, they're little blood vessels that's in the eye, sort of like that. And then I'm actually gonna, if you look, that bright green, it's got a bit of a blue in it. Well, we've already put the blue, so if we put it there and it's sort of round the edge of this highlight, and there's a few of the lines coming in through this darker area. I'm going to use the earth green yellowish because it's got a bit of a yellowy tinge to it as well. So where I can see that yellow here, that's it. And then that goes up into the brown there. Okay, it comes down here. Okay. Put that dark area into there. Then I'm going to use this, the olive green, which I'm going to use the side of the pencil and do some tiny strokes. And what I'm doing now is this darker area, which has got more of an olivey colour to it. And that comes out here just into the sort of highlight area. Okay. And then that's also in this area here, just under these blood vessels. And then this bit here as it comes up. Then we've got some other bits here. Okay, and then I'm going to put a bit of the, I'm going back with the May green because this looks a bit too light now. So again, using side of the pencil and just doing some nice circular motions. Leaving the highlight alone. There we go. Then I'm just going to put in, I'm getting the Naples yellow. It's a Naples ochre actually, so it's not a bright yellow. It's more of a, it's more of a neutral yellow. And then when I see the yellow areas, what I'm doing is I'm doing a glaze. Now, a glaze is where you literally just put in a little bit of that pencil over the top. So it's hardly noticeable, but it is noticeable, if you know what I mean. It does show. So wherever you see that yellow color, just oh, it's gone blurred again. Hang on. There. So you can see it's got a tinge of yellow there, but not much. What I've done is I've just literally used the side of the pencil and I've gone over that green area. Okay. Just let that settle. Okay. I don't know why it keeps going blurred like this. I'm going to have it checked out. Um, oh, I'm not sure if there is a, just bear with me one moment. So zoom in and zoom out. Ah, that takes it in, takes it out. Okay, dokie. So that looks a bit better there. Okay. So yes, I've done a bit of yellow there. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to get some grey, but I'm going to use the warm grey too. Okay, and then the real dark areas that are protruding from the, that you can see coming from the pupil, I'm going to put in quite dark enough. So I'm actually going to go back to the cold grey 3. So that's it. That makes it a little bit darker there. So that really sort of starts to build up these dark areas that we can see, these definite dark patches coming from around where the pupil is. And then we've got a couple on this side as well. Okay. A little bit darker up here at the top, but be careful of the highlight. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to get the white because I want to mix these. I want to blend these together first just to see. Now, when you blend with a white, now there's different methods of blending. You can use solvent, a lighter pencil, or a white, whichever method you use. You don't want to be with a white pencil, especially. Don't press on heavily. You're just doing it as light as you were doing the strokes before, but you go over everything. Now, what you will notice is that it actually lightens your color slightly. But what you're actually doing is you're blending the colors together and you sort of reducing the tooth of the paper. So you're making the colors look a bit smoother. Okay. But they obviously look a lot lighter. Okay. So what we've got to do now is re-go over some of this and make it back to being a lot darker. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to get my sepia color. Again, avoiding that highlight. Now I'm putting on a little bit more pressure than what I was using before. And again, make sure your pencils are sharp enough for this because we've got this really sort of, it's sort of a cone shape. And then here it goes right up into that dark area like that. Okay. And then to darken it a bit more, some indigo. And if you get lighter and put some of that indigo over where you've just put the grey lightly, you'll see that darkening that up a little bit as well. So where the dark areas are, and then go back in and put a little bit more pressure on where the pupil is. Okay. So you create the shades and the tones by lifting the pencil off a little bit. So, you know, if we come out of there, and then if I want to make it a little bit darker, I'll use mind you, I'll just sharpen this, I think. Let me just sharpen this to points, not that good. Okay. So you can see I've got a nice sharp point on that. Again, small strokes. Make a nice sort of edge such round the pupil. Pull a little bit of the brown, pulling the pressure off, lifting your pressure off, should I say, where the darker area is, like that. That's it. So just very lightly, that, and then go into that darker area up at the top there as well. Okay. To darken this corner up here. And then back down here. And then lift the pressure off as you're coming into this area that's a bit more of a purpley colour. Okay. And then as you're going back to where it's a real dark colour, just put a little bit more pressure on. There we go. So you can see it's nicely building up. Still a fair bit to do. So at the top here, I'm really putting the pressure on, and then I'm lifting it off as we come down. Pressing it back on as we come up. Take the pressure off. So now we're going back over it because we've used the white to blend. You can see it's looking a lot smoother now. It's not looking as grainy. Okay. So now we come to this area here. As I say, keep looking at your reference photo as well. Now this isn't quite. If you look, like I said, at the black and white, you can see this bit here isn't as dark. Starts off quite dark, but then lightens off again. So just lift the pressure off your pencil. And then I just want to turn this around just so I can get this shape better. That's dark at the top, and then just release the pressure as you come down. Okay. Put quite a bit of pressure on that white now there. And then I'm just going to go back over this lighter green area here. Like that. And then get the darker green again. So I've got the permanent olive green. Again, very light strokes. You don't like pressure. You don't need to put too much pressure on. Sort of, and then sort of right around the edge, you sort of just add a bit more of that green, just and then lifting it lightly as you come into the lighter areas. Then the darker areas, go over this bit here because it will be a bit greener as well. Okay. And then that comes down here. Let's have a look. That's got to come down here a little bit. Okay. And if you look, we've got that yellow. So I'm just going to put a little bit of yellow just there. Okay, and then we've got a little bit of the yellow showing just there. Looks a bit too green to me, so I'm just going to go over it with a little bit of the walnut brown. Some more of the walnut brown there, and some around here. And then that starts, I haven't pulled that far enough in, so I can just darken that up a bit now with adding a few more circular motions and layers there. It comes out just there. And then if you just very lightly put in a few bits of the lines there. So get that a bit darker up here again. And then lift off the pressure there. And I'm going to now add a bit of the blue right at the top there and where it's darkest. So if you're best off looking at your black and white picture for this bit, seeing where the colour is really dark and then it fades down into these other darker colours. And that's where they start to change. So you've got this sort of that looks really black and dark, but as it comes out, it looks lighter, but it's a mixture of all colors when you look at it. So if you look at it close up, it's got a purpley, but it's not purple. So I haven't used a purple. I've just used a mixture of other colors. Again, we've got some darker, just building up these darker sections. If I need to, just put in some of this. Now that actually looks a bit redder than what. And then the indigo blue. So this is where you start to look at the tones and see. I mean, that is still a dark area. Okay, so we don't want it to be really, really light, but it does need to look a slightly different color. Okay, so if you want to, if you need to, just lighten off again some of these areas, just or blend them. Okay. So I think we just need now just to darken this up a little bit more. So the dark sort of bit comes across there and then lift it off around there. Okay. Okay. So that's the eye part there, the iris, and the pupil and everything. If you feel you need to darken it a bit more, but we can come back to that at a later date. Let's just get the rest. So let's start to get some of this fur in. Just I think I should be going back to my Fabriano after this. I'm not so keen on this. It's okay for watercolors, but I don't think it's very good for the colored pencil that I'm doing. Right then, so if we have a look now, we're going to work out around here. So it's got a little bit of the grey. So that is a cool grey. So I'm using a cool grey 2. So if you look here, it comes at this dark area again. So I'm putting a bit more pressure on there. Now, this is like a lid, a lip that comes out that way. So when I do it, I'm sort of curling it slightly, but keeping it, it's more solid. Okay. But it sort of curves round if you look at it like that. And then there it curves round. Then it goes, so you lift your pressure off there because it goes into the hairline then. So this is just like a little bit of the lip of the skin that comes around there. And then at this side, it's in the same color. If you look at how it comes out, again, just look at the fur. I'm doing it more like a fur line. And then it sort of changes shape and it starts starts to come around over the top of the eye. So this is the sort of grey color. I'm going to be adding some dark down at the bottom. Okay. Comes up there. So we're starting to use the first fur lines now. And then as you come around the eye here, it turns and it starts to come out and curl. And these are a lot smaller. and it comes out this way, like that. Now we have got a bit coming from more or less extended from there, but just slightly disconnected. That's the sort of inside of the, so I'll mark that in. Pick up the grey again, and then come round, and there's another little bit of a highlight there where the skin is, where the tear duct is, and then that comes round that way. Okay. Okay, so I'm just gonna pop that in. So that's just shaping around the eye. Okay. Then we've got some of that colour running through here slightly. Then that's where it starts to come in. Now, before we do any more, what I want to do now is I want to put a warm grey one, which is number 230, I think. No, 270, is it? Yeah, 270, which is a warm grey one. Now I'm not going to use it as a sharp point. This is quite blunt, but I'll use that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put an initial layer. So I'm following the fur line. I'm just doing a nice soft. So I'm not putting too much pressure on, watching, just looking at the picture to see which way the fur lines are going. And I'm just following it up with a bit of a shading motion to start with. Very light pressure. Now that changes direction there. So I'm coming in there with that. And then this is where, this is the bit softer colours. Okay. So I'm doing this basically with a shading motion rather than hairline. I'm going to be doing the hairlines in a bit. Okay. So I'm just actually going to cover all of this using the side of the pencil, following closely the direction of the fur. So that comes to a point there. That comes out that way. So when I draw, when I'm doing the drawing, I do put a few little lines in to give me a guide and remind me exactly when the fur changes direction. Okay. Okay. So that is a warm grey one. Now, I'm only going to take that as far as this sort of direction, this fur bit comes to here. And then I'm going to change it to a cold grey. Okay, so I'm just, so when you get to that edge, just sort of feather it out a little bit there. Okay. Okay, so we've got a coating. You won't see it so much because it's a very pale grey. If you look there, you can see it's a grey that's there and it's just shaded in. And you can see the slight difference if you look between the cool grey and the warm grey. Okay, the warm grey comes more forward, the cool grey goes backwards. So now I'm going to get the cold grey one, or cold grey 2, was it I started with? Have a look. It's cold grey 2, warm grey 2. Yeah, so I've got the cold grey. What I'm going to do here, this is where the darker fur is, where it comes. Now I'm going to do this, and then what I do is push it back in around where I put all those indentations. Okay. And then as we come down this side, so do some strokes and then push it back in. Now I'm doing a couple of layers of this so that you'll be able to see roughly the indentations are like that. Okay. And then follow the direction. As you get up here, just pull and let it go into where those lighter areas are. This is a bit softer here. Okay, so this will be coming out a bit softer, like that. And then as you come nearer to where the white bits are, there we go. And then round that bit there. A little bit more pressure on when you do the second. And again, keep turning your pencil so it's and that goes a bit out of focus. So that's just basically shaded in. It's a bit more out of focus there. And then at the ends, we can shade it. Shade the grey there. Okay. And then down here, do the same, just shade. And then where it goes in, just push it. Because we haven't put any indentations in here. I'm going to do more of a. So if we look, push as it goes into the lighter area. And then that comes up here. Okay. And just shade your pencil gently on its side down there. Okay. So I've plotted roughly where I can see the highlighted air is there and then the cooler bits of the hair are there. So now we just got to work on that and build it up so that it looks a little bit more realistic. So I've got the cold grey 3. Now, this dark bit here, so where we did the grey coming out of the so I'm doing that in more of circular motion area there. So it finishes about there where that black line finishes. Okay, and then it goes right up into there. And then it sort of comes out of here and then it blends in with that lighter dark color, if you see what I mean. It's a bit lighter there. And then that comes out and into there. So start to see those indentations again. And then here is where we can sort of come in and then back out. Okay. So it's a dark grey here where that is created from the shadow of this light first sitting on top, but then it gets a bit lighter again as it goes back out. So we have to remember that. So the darker bits of grey are basically going to be around here. And if you look also, we have some that come down like this. Again, use the point and just lightly. And these are very short hairs that come here. And then they start to get a little bit longer here. Okay. So going round that highlight again. And then we've got some of these darker shadows around here. So using the cool grey. So they're more solid nearer the actual eye, and then they come out more as a fur line that way. And they disappear into there as well. So we've got some of the, so you do have little bits of the dark area inside the light. And then this is a bit darker and a bit more solid here. Okay. And then that comes down there. Okay, so what I might do is seem to have lost a little bit of that. So I get my little electric eraser. There we go. So you can actually use your eraser, electric eraser, or your Tombow quite easily to help define some of these fur shapes. So this is around coming down to the cat's nose, and it is quite an area that's sort of, it's got his fur line going in all sorts of directions. Okay, so that comes down there, off of there. So I'll put that off there. So again, if I use the eraser, just to create the shapes right. There we go. And then some little ones there. Okay. And then coming round that way on the eye. Okay, so you see it's starting to build up there. And then here, these are small hairs that come down here. And if you look at this, this is to give you the bone structure. See the bone structure of the cat now. And then it just sort of comes out this way. And that's a softer. Okay. So what we need to do here is create a bit of the darker grey that's underneath. So make sure your pencil's sharp again. So sharp, give you some of your pencils. So we're looking at the cold grey 3. I'm going to look at the warm grey. Excuse me. Warm grey 2. Okay. Got the white. I've got another white there, which is a Pablo. And then I've got the cold grey 2. And then I'll have the dark sepia as well. And the dark sepia we're going to put in more or less where the darkest of the areas are, but we're going to use light pressure. Oops, pencils. Oops, that pencil's gone now. Let me just get a new one. Dark sepia. Oh, it's another old one. It's a bit better. Let me sharpen this one a bit more. That's better. Okay, so I'm now just going to look. So coming out this way from this bit, got some little dark bits here, and they're quite close together because they're coming out from this eye. So I'm doing really short strokes here. that a little bit further there. Just keep looking at your reference photo. So you have got a defining line, but at the same time, it wants to be a little bit blurred. So it's going into this grey fur. You don't want a specific black line. And then your fur needs to have, there we go. And then we have this bit here where bits of the dark into the light. That. And then I'm going to get this. This is the cold grey 3. Because this is quite sort of shaded, this area. Oops, this area. That's the bit that comes out there. And it gives you that other teardrop there. Okay. And then that starts to come out into fur lines there. Okay, so that again blends into there a bit. So I can use the sepia just in that corner there, just a little bit, just a tiny bit, very lightly. Like that. Okay. That's starting to come around there. So we're now working from here. So this is where the light patches start, but we need to go in with the dark like that. Right at the edges is the darkest. So you can see there, and you'll start to see these pockets of, so now I'm using just a mixture of these, the cold grey 2, the cold grey 3, and the dark sepia. Okay, so start with the lightest one. That'll go out the furthest, like that. Again, just keep following the direction of which the fur's going in. Then as we come out here, it's a bit softer. It's not as harsh as this, but we still have the lines of the grey. And then it fades off here because it's all out of focus up here. So we can just do that as a shaded motion there. Okay. Now, it doesn't matter if you shade a bit much of this in because we can either erase it out or use the ceramic blade, whichever. Okay, so now I'm going to go with this one, which is the cold grey 3. And I'm going to go in a little bit. And then if you look, you've also got where, if you look where the lighter bits are, and then just, you've got these where it shows a little bit of the dark colours. Oh. And then here again, so at this end where we want to be, and then that fades off. We're going to fade that off using blending with some white in a bit. So I'm following the line of this because it's got a bit of a kink on it there. Okay. Right. So now I'm going to go in with this dark sepia. And just keep looking at your reference photograph. come down into there. And then I'm just going to do what we call a sweeping shading motion that way. And remembering to follow the direction of which the fur is going. Okay. And then here we've got a few little, these are the bits that go onto the nose where the whiskers come out of, so we can actually put a bit more pressure and just put a few little dots there. Okay. Then I'm going to get the warm grey. So this is the warm grey 2. And I'm shading the lighter areas here that are going into the darker areas of the grey. Like there. Okay. And then here, so this is a little bit more blurred. And that shape there, then it changes direction there. Okay, and then I'm just going to put on bits of, I'm going to fetch this more up on its tip. And if you look, I'm just fetching, because these are quite, if you look where the white fur then is overlapping, if you look, it's not, like I said, it's not as harsh as that, it's softer. And if you look, they're a bit wider, obviously. So if you try and do it very softly like that and just put in, if you look, the dark grey is just the darkest bits are just really in this area here. Okay. Then I'm going to get the whites. I'm going to soften all this in now with the white. So that's going to lighten some of it anyway. But it's going to, so the fur lines don't look as harsh. It's going to soften them in a little bit. Like that. Plus it's going to give me a little bit more coating so that if I want to, I can use the ceramic blade. So I'm now using the side of the pencil lightly and I'm shading in all of these areas here so that won't affect the embossed areas. Okay. And then just up here as well. But it just fills the tooth of the paper in and it makes it look a lot smoother. Okay. So now we can have a look and do any alterations or darkening up. So here, need a few darker areas. So that's the cold grey 3 that I'm using just here. Okay. Also around here. So I'm doing a bit of an arch there just so that it makes it obvious that it's coming out of there. And then this fades into there. Okay. Like that. I've got a warm grey one somewhere. No, it's a cold grey one. So I'm using the cold grey one just to lighten some of these off here. Okay, and then I'm just going to go back in with the sepia. Just into more little specific little areas, just making it look a little bit more blended. If you look, if you put it right next to where the white is, just inserting that. And then as we come up here, there we go. Okay. I'll make these a little bit more. These are where the whiskers will come from. Okay. So if you put on sort of pressure in the middle and then as you're coming out, the overall shape wants to be sort of like a, as though that's the circle in the middle. But then what you do is you use your first strokes and then just lift them further out as you come out of the middle. And some of them are darker than others, so keep your eye on that as well. Right then, just take that off a bit. Right. So now I'm just going to sharpen up this pupil. This area around here. Some blue in it, which is the indigo. Like that. Okay. Around here. Um, there we go. Then what I'm going to do is just using my eraser. So you can use that or you can use your Tombow, which is, where's my Tombow gone? Here it is. So if you've got a little Tombow, just make sure it's clean on the edge. Just wipe it so if it's clean. And then you can strengthen some of the whiter areas by rubbing out just some and make some more of these. Make sure they're not too even. They're a bit more random. Oops, keep cleaning your rubber off, just extending it now and then. Just go out of shape when you push on it a little bit. That's why I prefer the electric one. A bit more of the white fur there. And here as you're coming out. So just gently rub it backwards and forwards. That. Okay. So let me use me. I don't know if we've got enough layers on for this, but we may have. Yeah. Down here, I can use me blade a little bit more just to differentiate these white bits here. And then obviously they're smaller there, so put a little bit more shape into there. Okay. And then if you feel like you've lost some of your highlight, you can just or use your Tombow, whichever you feel you need to. If you need to, you might not need to. Okay. So there we go. So let me just see if I can just push that in a bit more. There you go. So if we have a look at it now, move the pencils out the way. There's the May green. Yep. So I'm just now gonna build that iris up just that little bit more. Okay. Okay, just a bit more, better. And then make sure we've got that tinge of yellow just by glazing just there. Okay. And then where's the dark green, the darkest green? Just going to put a little bit of that around the edges here. And a bit more there. Using the red, I'm just going to make these veins a little bit more because they do sometimes look a bit red. There we go. So there we are. So that's the original. So obviously the green that this looks a bit darker. You can build this up as much as you want, so you can actually spend a lot more time. Just getting these layers that little bit is come out a bit lighter, but still like that more grey. And then we'll use the cold grey 3. Just to put those little bits of. So it looks like this fur is on top of that fur. Best way to do that is to push that into the white fur. Push it in like that. There we go. So that's darken that up a bit. So turn this light off. You might see it better actually. There we go. So that's one finished eye. And as you can see these These look very good zoomed up. So I don't know if we can zoom that in anymore. Just hang on. No, it's not going to zoom in anymore. I'm going to zoom out. That's it zoomed out. Okay, so you can see the colours. You can see that that's looking like that. And that's a nice lip. And the eye is disappearing. The eyeball is disappearing into there. Okay. And then these bits of the hair come over and we've got these little strands just over there. So you can see that that is predominantly coming forward. Okay, so I hope you enjoyed that tutorial. If you did, I will be doing some more. I'll be doing some watercolors and I'll also be doing some, I don't know if many of you have thought about digital art, which I have got a program which you can download and it's called Procreate and you can do all sorts of designs. It's wonderful for designing cards, anything like that. But I actually do some realism on it, using coloured pencil techniques, but also using watercolor techniques. And I've actually done a few pieces that they're not bad. I've only been messing about with it. I'll show you quickly. So let me get my pencil out. Okay. So if I open the program up, so here's one that was the, I don't know if you can see, oh, you can't really see it, can you? Let me just switch that light on again, see if, no, we can't really see it, but let's see if we fetch it up. So that's my drawing of it. Go back to the gallery. That's the photograph that I worked from. And then I drew it and then using some watercolor paint brushes, picking my colors. I actually did that. And then if you look very closely, I've actually put a watercolor paper texture over the top. Okay, so that's one of the first ones that I was trying. I have done this one, which is in, it's been done in color pencil on Patreon. And that's a blue jay as well, which I've done. So yeah, I've done quite a few bits. That's the King Charles Cavalier that I tried. That's one of the first one pieces that I tried doing realism. So I was doing some of those pieces as well, and also doing some mandalas using the Procreate, as well as using some just by doing some drawing on the paper. Okay, well I hope you enjoyed that, and I hope to see you again. I will be doing another video, and I'm going to be doing quite a few now. I'm sorry I've been a bit long-winded in getting them started. But as most of you know, we've had a family tragedy, and to be quite honest, I did lose my mojo a little bit, and it's just coming back now. So you can just bear with me. But I am trying to create again some very nice drawings that you would be able to do. So this is a beginner's drawing, really. And it's for eyes, which some people find hard, but if you practice them, they're not that bad. And this is not a bad size to start with, just doing practicing eyes. So I would say to you, just get as many animals as you can, zoom in or crop the picture so that you can get the eyes, and just practice this drawing different animals' eyes and get to know the animals. I mean, we have cats, so it's not too bad with the cats because I know the structure of the face and the bones. And there's dogs. I do a lot of dog commissions as well. So, but I'm hoping to get you into some new techniques as well. So here's a few of them. What I'll do is each time we do a project, I will do a piece, a practice piece of the techniques that we use in the project. Okay. Sorry to have been so long getting back to you, and I hope you enjoy it. I will upload. You've got the reference photographs to upload. You've got the materials, and I'll also upload a line drawing for you as well. If you can draw it by hand, that's better still. But if not, you can always use the line drawing. Okay, thank you very much for watching. Okay, and I will see you next week. Thank you. Bye bye.